Let's bring you more on our top story this morning. We were told earlier that the police are out in full force at Wits University ahead of a planned mass meeting by students this afternoon there. And 2 students were arrested yesterday and are facing charges of public violence. Well, to get some comment on the developments this week and the ongoing protests by students on many campuses, forcing many of them to shut down this week, we joined in our Cape Town studios by the Higher Education Minister, Nzimande. Good morning, Perpetua, and thank you very much for your time this morning. Can we start with what's been happening at Wits in particular? We've seen running battles between students and police in the streets of Braamfontein. What is your reaction when you see those kind of scenes outside and inside a campus?
Thank you very much, Dan. Maybe before I respond specifically to that, well, thank you for the opportunity, first of all. But I just need to clarify something which seems like is either disinformation or arises out of ignorance in some of the media. I am not responsible for setting fees for institutions. It has always been in law, it's not something new, that each individual, for instance, University Council, sets its own fees. All what I was doing was, as we had agreed that given the sensitivity of the matter, we need a national regulatory framework within which to deal with the issue of fee increases each year, which is then what I was announcing, that framework on Monday. I just thought that I need to clear that I'm not running away or not taking responsibility. Many of the people who say that they know that in law, these are the institutions. But in response to your question, you know, I think that South Africans really need to stand up and say, much as we've understood what the students are saying, government is listening, has listened, there are processes underway, the Presidential Commission, there is absolutely no reason for the kinds of scenes that we were seeing at a place like Wits University. In fact, we must characterize that for what it is. When you were looking at the throwing of stones and so on, that's vandalism, it's thuggery, it's something that should have no place in a democratic South Africa, no matter what the issues are. And that is why, amongst other things, I'm calling upon the overwhelming majority of the students who we know they want to learn and continue with their studies to actually distance themselves from this and also help us to isolate this element whose aim really is actually to destroy the future of our youngsters for whatever narrow political agendas that they are pursuing. As a matter of fact, then I must tell you, I have never received such overwhelming positive support and messages given the announcement we made on Monday. Not only just people that NSFAS students are not going to experience any fee increase because government will absorb that, but also for the first time, government expanded this to say those who actually do not fall within NSFAS but cannot be able to afford will also experience no fee increase. And it's a huge difference then. NSFAS is all those who are earning 10,000 rands or less, their family households. Now, to cover the missing middle, we have upped this to say we also now going to include all those who are not earning more than 50,000, who have actually multiplied 5 times the limit or the cutoff point of NSFAS, in order also to cater for who? Teachers, nurses, police, semi-skilled and skilled workers in the private sector who in the past have not been benefiting. And also this is the first step to say, we are now looking also at a system, a loan system that is designed to help those who actually do not qualify for NSFAS, but yet they cannot be able to afford. The response has been overwhelming.
But then some students, Minister, some student organizations and some students,
yes,
while you are explaining what is your role in terms of setting fees, you don't legally set fees, is institution set fees. Some students feel that the consultation process towards your recommendation maybe was not inclusive enough, and there's a trust issue here. What do you say to that, to some of those who are saying, how can we trust our Minister of Higher Education about the way forward?
Unfortunately, again, that is such serious allegations. It's just disinformation, really. I don't know who those students are. I would really like to know, and who do they represent. I've never consulted this extensively on a matter like this as I have done this time. I have consulted various student formations and organizations, consulted youth formations, spoke with the vice chancellors, spoke with university councils, engaged TVET college students, and I even went beyond your usual stakeholders, you know, in higher education. I also engaged and briefed the faith communities across the board, with representatives from the Muslim Judicial Council, representatives from the Jewish community, representatives from the churches, you know, ZCC, for instance, the Zion Christian Church, there was a representative, and also engaged all the major trade union federations in the country around this particular matter, because this can't just be a matter for students only. That is why also I've been engaging and calling upon parents or institutions like faith communities where parents are, to actually say, what are your views, what are you saying? And I can tell you there's been overwhelming support for the stance that we've taken, and actually people understand that government is really going very, very far to actually ensure that education become accessible. But the most important thing,
students are still protesting?
That is why I'm saying that there's a minority of students, largely, some of them, they have got other agendas other than education. That is the reason why I'm saying there is no reason to protest. As a matter of fact, I'm working with various student leadership in actually even managing the current situation. There is no need. That is why then I'm saying, let South Africans stand up once and for all and say, this can't be done in their name and risking the academic careers of our young people unnecessarily. That's why also I'm really worried about this, because you know this amount of money that government is committing, it means 70 to 75%, for instance, of all undergraduate students in our universities are not going to experience any fee increase. That's about 700,000 students who are not going to be experiencing, as well as the entire TVET college sector. So who are these speaking for? I'm also worried, by the way, that some of them may be speaking for not just the parents who can afford, but for the rich. Why should corporates, companies who give millions of rands in scholarships and bursaries not pay an increase? An increase, by the way, which is needed in order to secure our university and college system, and also an increase, by the way, which is going to go and help poor students beyond just fees, but in meeting their other needs at university and
Minister,
colleges. Why should we not collect that money when we're a poor country, when we're a country that does not have enough resources to support everyone?
Minister, one can feel your sense of frustration, and you look angry or look upset. You are really a little bit frustrated. Would you, if you are the Minister of Higher Education and the governing party Secretary General Gwede Mantashe yesterday saying if he was Minister of Higher Education, he would shut down the universities. Would you go to that extent to try and calm things down or not?
Look, the way I understood the Secretary General of the ANC, he was talking as a parent. By the way, in his own way, expressing frustration that is being expressed, as I said then, by many, many parents who have actually been reaching out to us as a department and to me personally, saying they actually do not understand how can government can go to this extent. And also that there is a presidential commission which was actually looking at how do we finally address this issue of access to free higher education for the poor? And why are these students still doing what they are doing, vandalizing, torching buildings? I've just been told this morning that at the University of Zululand they were they were actually torching a building and all that. Are those still students who are actually torching buildings, or we are actually really dealing with criminals? So the way I understood the SG is just one way of expressing frustration by many, many parents who have been reaching out to me, some of them. I've been in many, many talk shows talking about this, saying, but this is just a very dangerous culture of entitlement, you know, by a smaller grouping of students who seem to be having no interest in actually protecting our higher education
Minister,
system.
I hear you, but the question is, would you shut down the universities?
Would a what?
Shut down the universities.
Would we shut down? No. Let me say this. We are monitoring all our institutions, especially those that appear to be having problems. We are trying to say to institutions, engage the students, engage all the stakeholders. But where then life and limb and property is being threatened, we will certainly advise those institutions to shut down in order to protect property. Then can you imagine if a student, just one student, like I was seeing those stones flying at Wits University, gets hit by a brick and collapses and die? What would that do? Our parents send their young people to universities and colleges to study and not to be hit by bricks, by people who seem to be being misled about what government is actually doing. Yes, we are monitoring very closely. Where we think that there is a serious threat, we will advise institutions to close down in order to save lives, in order to also protect these important assets of our institutions. Look at what University of KwaZulu-Natal, for instance. You ban a law library, you actually destroy documents that are a century old that we will never ever have again. What does that mean in terms of knowledge? What kind of society is that which in fact would tolerate barbarism?
Okay, for
so
the future,
that is why
Minister,
we are calling upon all South Africans. Pardon?
Yeah, sorry, I was saying for the future, just to conclude our interview, for the future, there's the Fees Commission that the President has set up that is going on. Are you confident, very briefly, that we as South Africans, through those processes like the Commission for Higher Fees, we will find a sustainable and viable long-term solution for higher education funding in South Africa?
I'm more than confident then that we will actually find a solution. The reason why I'm confident, firstly, is that we're on the same side as students. As government, we are committed to free higher education for the poor and for those also who cannot afford genuinely, that we are beginning to actually address now. So that commitment by government, in fact, is a very positive sign that we will achieve this. But we are also urging the rest of society to join us and also to come with ideas. The students themselves, they mustn't just protest. The spokesperson of the judge himself was actually saying they are worried that there have been instances where some students have been disruptive, towards this process. We are calling everybody. If you have an idea, go and work with this. I am confident that as a country we'll be able to find a solution.
Mpepeta, thank you very much. That's the Minister of Higher Education, Blade Nzimande, in our studios in Cape Town.